fan Butera, and I'm so glad to have you joining me today in my studio to talk about sketchbooks. Specifically, I want to talk about choosing one. I know it can be really daunting when you go into the art supply store and you see that whole wall of different options of sketchbooks and art pads, and choosing the one that's right can be hard. I'll give you some tips today to help you make that decision easier. Also, if you have a sketchbook already and you're not really working in it very much, one of the reasons might be that it's not the right book for you. So these tips will help you with that too. The first thing to consider is the type of paper that's in your book. You want the paper to be correct for the material you want to use in it. So let's say you want to paint in your sketchbook. If you choose a book that has paper designed for use with dry media, like pencils, you're going to be frustrated by the way the paper reacts to your paint, especially if it's something like watercolor, where you have a lot of water, it's wet, the paper's not going to like it, and you're not going to like it. So one thing that I have found, there is an option for some sketchbooks to have watercolor paper. I don't always like to use that sort of paper as my main sketchbook because drawing with other media doesn't work as well. The solution that I found is choosing sketchbooks with mixed media paper. That gives me the most options for what I can do in my sketchbook. One brand that I really like is this Strathmore. This is the 500 series, and this is their softcover. It's a lay flat book. This page is done with gouache. I have used this brand with Dana Barberi for our 2 sketchbook collaborations, and I've used it on my own. I love these books. The only downside, I guess, is that there aren't quite as many pages as in some other sketchbooks. Like this Canson XL mixed media book has a lot of pages in it and it'll last you a long time. So I guess the number of pages is something, in addition to the type of paper, is something to keep in mind. Colored paper is also an option in your sketchbooks. This toned tan paper I was using last summer to do colored pencils in, and it worked beautifully, and I just love the way it makes the colors pop. One disappointment that I had in terms of paper, this Big Yellow Bee sketchbook, it is for use with dry media, but it says that it can be used with wet. I thought I could use it comfortably with a lot of different media then, but I didn't really like the way it took markers, and even colored pencils. Didn't like it. So now I use it mostly for collage. It's nice to be able to repurpose paper like that in a sketchbook instead of wasting it. So collage or gluing things that you've created outside of the sketchbook into its pages, that's a great solution if your paper doesn't quite work for you. So paper, number one thing to keep in mind, what type of paper, also how many pages of that paper. Along the lines of pages, you're going to want to choose your sketchbook with the right binding for you. So how are those pages put together? Spiral binding is one option. I used to, before I fell in love with sketchbooks, I used to kind of scoff at spiral bound books because I thought they didn't look very pretty, they weren't very professional looking, but they're really easy to use. I love that you can open them completely flat. They're really my favorite type of binding for a sketchbook. This softcover book, the Strathmore one that I mentioned, this is designed to lay flat, and most of the time it does. If you're having trouble with it, a clothespin or a binder clip can help hold it flat, especially if you have pages that have been wrinkled by water, or if you're collaging and there are lots of different thicknesses. This will really help. So a softcover book is another option. A hardcover book is an option that I really never use because I find them hard to keep open. I don't like the divot that forms in the center. I'm sure there are some that are designed to open more easily than that, but I just haven't really used them. They're also kind of heavier than something with a soft cover, so keeping the weight of your book in mind is also important. If you're going to be carrying it around outside, putting it in a purse or backpack, that's a good thing to keep in mind because you don't want your shoulders to ache. So we've talked about choosing a book with the right kind of paper. We've talked about binding. The other important thing to keep in mind is size. And you can see just here on this table, I have a whole bunch of different sizes of sketchbooks. From this tiny little one, which I think must be something like 3 by 5, up to this one, which is 9 by 12. You're going to want to choose a book that the size of the page is comfortable to work in. This one I bought, I'm not sure when, but I've only used it 3 times. The dates in here are from 2012. It's just really too small for me to comfortably work, and so never really use it. For a long time, I loved this size. This is maybe 6 by 6. I could take this out in the garden with me. That's what I used it for, daily sketching in the garden. I loved this size for a while. I bought another one. I don't really use it very much because I feel too cramped in it. I've been working in larger size. This one is about roughly 8 by 10. Gives me lots of room to spread out and work. I really, even though at first I was daunted by 9 by 12 pages, I love being able, here's a funny page that I did. I love being able to spread out, fill up a whole page, and if I'm doing lots of little sketches, it gives me room to do that. Like these pages, I just filled it with lots of little sketches. And so a large page like that, sometimes I don't fill the whole thing up, and that's okay. But it gives me room to glue things in, to draw the same thing over and over again, like this, which was a test for different drawing materials. It's just, I'm loving the large pages, but at first I was intimidated by a page that was that big. How will I ever fill it? So it's really a personal preference. How do you feel when you open up the book and look at the page? So when you're going shopping for your sketchbooks, if you're in a physical shop, open it up and see. How does the paper physically feel to you? Do you feel like you could comfortably work in a sketchbook like that? If so, then it's the right book for you. If it feels awkward for any reason, maybe it's not. So that's just a really quick overview of some good ideas to keep in mind when you're choosing a sketchbook. If you want to go into a little more detail about how to choose a sketchbook, what maybe to put in its pages, I've got a guide that I created that you can download and print, or just download and look at it on your computer or your tablet. And you can get that by going to my website, mygiantstrawberry.com/sketchbooks. I'll also include a link down below that you can go to and you can claim your guide. I think it's 28 pages, and it's even got prompts to get you started with ideas for what to fill up your sketchbook with. Thanks so much for joining me in my studio. I hope that I've helped you to get some ideas of how you can choose your sketchbook, and I'm so glad that you're here. I've got some great things in store for my YouTube channel coming up, and I can't wait to share them with you. Until next time, bye!